continue on that same strategy of what to look for in this whole sealing, repair, and replace world. When it comes to cylinder heads or intake manifold gaskets, where there's a little more that is going on here, you really got bolt load you've got to concern yourself with. You're, in many cases, trying to seal coolant, or in head gaskets, you're sealing coolant and you're sealing oil and you're sealing combustion. You got a ton going on. So in this case, you really need to be careful on what you're doing, and again, need to pay attention to see if something is loose. Loose fasteners are never good. And in the case of intake manifolds, that can simply happen because somebody wasn't paying attention. Head gaskets, more often than not, people torque them, but you'd be surprised. Some are missed. Sometimes, head bolts can be hidden. They may tighten at one time and they know it's supposed to be 30 and a 30 and a 180 after that, where you're supposed to do a 3-step torque procedure. They may miss that final step. So when you're removing it, again, pay attention to see if the fasteners are as tight as they should be. And if one or a few just don't seem right, that could be an area for concern, that maybe it just wasn't assembled correctly. The other thing that you really need to take a look at when you carefully remove the cylinder head is in the case of surfaces. Now, I mean, gaskets are pretty lenient, but you really can't have deep scratches in there. You really can't have people that sand and grind away the combustion seal in the case of, especially of engine decks, where you'll have that carbon ridge and they just can't help themselves, so they grind that off. So now the finish is less than desirable, and it isn't flat, so there's no load for the new head gasket to seal. So you've added insult to injury in this case. So those are situations that you probably ought to take a little time to look and check. In the case of cylinder heads or intake manifolds, you need really probably to check with a straight edge and kind of take a good look to make sure this stuff is flat. And if you can see the scratches, they may be too deep. The other one that you got to be careful of, and this doesn't happen as often as it used to, but sometimes in overheat situations, you'll have pieces of metal that actually, I don't know what the right term is, they actually displace from the surfaces for a million different reasons, because of casting imperfections, so they leave inclusion, so you have a dent or a hole. And in some cases, they're not that important because they're in areas of maybe that isn't some concern. But boy, if they're by a sealing surface, you better watch it. If you're sealing oil, or you're sealing coolant, or you're sealing combustion, these are areas that really need to be clean and flat. So those little inclusions or divots that you might find in cylinder heads, or you might find in engine blocks, are really important if they're a sealing area. So spend some time, whether it be a water pump or a cylinder head or an intake or a valve cover for that matter. Spend some time, look at it, clean it carefully, make sure that when you go back in, you're the last guy that has to go back in, because chances are the first one failed for reasons other than original equipment installation.